Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell, here on the Global Village, where we explore the fascinating interactions of practical spirituality, wellness, and explore the limits of the human mind and global consciousness. I'm your host, and we're here each and every week to dive deep into the mysteries of the mind, the power of intuition, practical spirituality, and seek the understanding of the limitless potential within each of us. Join me and my special guests as we embark on a journey of discovery, enlightenment, and transformation. Together, we'll uncover ancient wisdom, modern insights, practical tools to help you navigate the ever-evolving landscape of our global village. Get ready to expand your horizons and evaluate your understanding. Welcome to the show, my friends. My guest today is Jennifer Longmore, an award-winning CEO, 11-time best-selling author, and founder of the #1 Akashic Record Training School in the world. Over the past 20 years, her school has certified over 100,000 consultants in over 100 countries and has been translated into 5 languages. She is a beloved teacher and brilliant businesswoman who has been leaving her mark here in the world for more than 2 decades. Quietly known only to a few, Jennifer channels Mother Maya, I guess I pronounced that right, Maya, and
Yeah.
sought the world's great, who is sought out as one of the Great Mother's guidance when facing questions or challenges. And that's how Jennifer got to contact the Great Mother so that she could get answers which she clearly could not answer herself. On one of those occasions, and this is where she is today, tell us all about it. While guiding a retreat for students in Hawaii, she invited the Great Mother to step in with all the answers.
Mhm.
Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you. It is such a great honor and privilege to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on. And I know how much you cherish your audience. So thank you for letting me pour at least maybe one or two ahas into everyone today.
Well, we're really interested in finding out more about your journey.
Mm.
Everybody has a special journey. Everybody finds their way. Something
Mhm.
happens, and they develop that interest in spirituality. At least that's uh, my observation of people. But
Yeah.
tell us, how did you get to become this wonderful person to channel the
Yeah.
Great Mother, and how did that happen? And tell us a lot about what kind of
Yes.
what's it feel like, and what are what,
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. Well, to give a little context, my parents took me for my first past life regression when I was 3, 4 years old. We went to a trance channel for the day. They wanted to figure out why we came together as a family, why they came together as a couple. And but most of the time was spent, this was back, as you know, in the eight or well, actually in the 70s when nobody really was supervising their children. And so they just left me with the adults all day, and the adults would come up to me and say, "Hello, little girl, what is the nature of the universe?" And I will just start channeling. So Mother Malia has been with me the whole time. My grandfather was my maternal grandfather was a psychic medium with the police. So often the adults loved to play little games with me as a kid and test me, and but through a series of events, yes. I was leading my retreat, and halfway through the retreat, I went to bed because there was a dilemma with the group. As you know, when groups come together, there's usually some sort of buildup of an energy, and someone ends up being the surrogate for everyone's resistance and stuff that they are clearing. And so one of the women there was really let's just say having some issues that were affecting everyone else's experience of the retreat. So my human self couldn't figure it out. I said, you know what? I'm tired. I have to go to bed. I'm going to delegate this to divine perfection. And when I wake up in the morning, I will like exact steps of how to handle this situation. And in the middle of the night, Mother Malia came in and just started channeling away. And so my human part is, of course, as you can hear in my voice, my human is present enough to tether, I shall say, my Malia. But she took me to the bathroom to have me look in the mirror because I was in a hotel, of course, to see the channel transmissions. And I said, well, why? What is your mission? Why are you here? Why are you coming through me? She said, I am you, and we are now fully integrated. And I'm here now because the world is in impending doom, and we must make things right. And 6 days later, the bombing started in Israel. This was back, of course, in 2023, and then the rest is kind of history. Yeah.
How old were you when this happened?
I was 48 years old.
So this was like an announcement. I'll kind of call it that word comes to me. It was an announcement. Here I am, and it was your
Yes.
world's in trouble.
Yes, and so it wasn't the student was really a catalyst for this, but obviously she was going to come in anyways. It was already ordained. About 6 days before I went to the retreat, I went to a private equine retreat. I wasn't going there to heal or anything. I was going there just because I like to be with the horses, and one horse did an anointing on me for about 2 hours, and I just kept saying over and over again, "Thank you." I still to this day couldn't tell you what the horse transmitted, but it was very potent. And then, of course, Mother Malia came in, and so it's interesting the number six, right? Just 6 days later, and then 6 days after that, the bombings, etc. Now, as it is now, my voice is much more integrated, but in the beginning, my jaw kept protruding because everything was forcing out of the diaphragm. I was singing my words. My voice box was very loud because I didn't know how to control the voice, etc. But yes, it has been quite an interesting adventure over these last several months.
Well, I just to step back a little bit, your parents obviously were let's call students. They're very interested in metaphysics and parent
Yes,
activity, and back in the 70s, that's that was kind of an awakening spiritual. A lot of spiritual things were happening back then. Uh,
yes,
Journey and whatnot. But that must have been interesting. The big people listening to what you have to say kind of reminds me of that little fellow in Jerusalem way back in the day when his parents were on their way to Bethlehem to pay their taxes. There he was sitting in the temple. I'm talking, of course, about Yeshua or Jesus, and
yeah,
adults are asking him questions, and he's just giving them profound information. So you were
yes,
opened up as a child. You weren't afraid. This became natural to you, I'm sure. And so
yeah,
everybody listening right now would say, like, yeah, but you were a child. How did this come about? Or what did,
yes.
what did you tell your, I'm just going to step back a little bit and we'll go forward. What did you tell the people at school or your friends or whatever?
Oh, yes. Well, I was seeing orbs when I remember being 10 months old and seeing orbs when I will be in my crib. I was very telekinetic as a child, so objects were often moving through my room, but I didn't know who to tell because I just thought, I don't know what's happening. I didn't know that I say this in quotations, of course, abnormal because I just thought everyone was the same.
Sure,
But
yeah.
very soon, I would freak people out, I will say, because I will know things that I didn't know they didn't know, or I should not have known. And I never knew what I was doing that was making people feel badly. So I ended up spending a great deal of my childhood centering myself, not knowing what I was doing that was upsetting people in my presence. And but eventually I realized that because in my teenage years I thought, oh, this is a curse. I don't like this. But then I realized no matter how much I try to resist it, it's not going away. What will happen if I lead into it? And that's when I got introduced to Reiki and other such things, and the journey sort of started. But what I didn't also share with you is that I used to work as a forensic investigator. And
Oh,
so that was also very interesting to be very intuitive and yet not always have the evidence to prove certain situations, to convict people. And also very interesting to be in that when by then I had already had my Reiki master and so on. So my energy was very big. I was intuitive and I was working in a very backwards system as a public servant. So so I did go into a more conventional path of a career, but I realized, I'm pretty much I'm a big weirdo. I say that playfully. So I kind of had no choice but to start my own business.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's sort of everybody asks, how did you get started? Or, how do you do these things? And I guess everybody has their own way, but first you have to make a living, and then
Yes,
go a little further, and then you get that point I found anyway to, step off and go into business for yourself. So as you did that, of course, you've alluded to the fact that you've had training in other places, which is
yes,
natural. People,
yeah,
I agree. They seem to develop their intuition and then they expand on it, see orbs, see auras, maybe do spiritual healing, Reiki, if you will. And all of a sudden it's like it's a never-ending journey, right? There's always something
yes,
else. So tell me,
yes.
you get from where you are, as a child into now working in a regular quote unquote job, tolerating all the little, snickers and rumors and all that stuff. She's a little
Yes. Well,
and stuff. And then
yeah.
going to what I see as this amazing Akashic Record School. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, that was never really my plan. I just was happy to do readings. I was happy to teach Reiki. I was happy to do sessions. And then I started having a recurring dream for 2 weeks, and it was keeping me up every night. It was this beautiful text. It was a big, huge text with gold trim on the pages and very ancient writing. And I knew I needed to read that book, but it wouldn't tell me what it was. And then one day, someone at my job said, who was very spiritual as well, she said, "Well, why don't you just ask your guides what they're trying to tell you?" And I started laughing. I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard because I thought, of course, why didn't I do this? All these 2 weeks with no sleep, I could have just asked what they're trying to tell me. So that night I went to bed. I said, "Okay, everyone, you obviously have a message for me. Please tell me very clearly in human terms so I can understand and let me remember when I wake up in the morning." And in the middle of the night, I heard, "These are the Akashic records. You must learn them so that you can teach them." And I was less interested in that statement. I was just so relieved that I could finally sleep through the night and I had the answer to the mystery, so to speak. So the very next day, and I cannot make this up, it was very profound. My one friend didn't even know. Someone called her crystal store at 9 in the morning and said, "I need to book an Akashic reading." And she said, "I don't do them. Jennifer does." And within 5 minutes of opening, he called me and said, "I'd like to book an appointment." I said, "I don't offer sessions." And he said, "Well, you do now." That is how hilarious that is. And then that was kind of the beginning. And then I will do readings for about a year or so, and people started saying, "Can you teach me how to do this?" I said, "No, I can't." And they said, because, I came from academia, which says you have to have a university that, gives you permission to, give someone an education, etc. So then people started getting mad at me. They said, "Well, why are you hoarding this information?" I said, "I'm actually just trying to honor you by not teaching you something that nobody has given me permission to do." And then, of course, again, through a recurring dream, my guides kept saying, "No, you have been anointed. You can absolutely teach this." And so I put out a poll for the first class and I said, "Okay, everyone, I'm going to teach you how to read your own records." And then at the end of that class, they said, "So when is level two?" And I said, "There is no level two." And they said, "There is now." And so that's how it kind of snowballed. And so for a long time I did it in person, but once I moved the business online, then I had to figure out how do I, because the brain, just decides this is the only way I can teach the Akashic Records is in person. And then I had to figure out how to be able to bring it online so that I could serve everyone around the world to do that. And that's when it really exploded. Yeah.
Wow. So mostly it's I'm still uh, thinking back in the days where you come to the class, everybody has the tea and sits around
Yes.
and gets to know each other. And then the instructor comes, the in-person class. But now with Zoom and other things that are going on, uh,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like curious as to how you would do that with people. I guess they're in their own homes, sort of like what we're doing here now, being interviewed at
Yes.
distances. But I'm going to ask you more about how that happens. But before I go there, I want to ask you when you referred to several times they, I was told.
Oh, yes.
You panting chomping at the bit might be a better term. Who are they? What are they? What does it
Yes.
sound like? Is it a booming voice,
Yes.
a squeaky voice? Who is it?
Oh, yes, I see. It kind of it will come in a lot of ways. First of all, as the Great Mother, she has been with me the whole time. So this is a very, I will say for ease, a high council of light. Mainly a male presence, interestingly. So it is visual. It is clairaudient. It is claircognizance, just a deep knowing.
Mhm.
But it is mainly a deep, bellowing voice that is very clearly coming from a very distant place. I don't know how else to explain that, if that makes sense.
Well, we're trying to give the audience some preferences or
Yes.
parameters. I mean, as a child, doing something all the time and then thinking everybody else did it, and you found out they didn't. That was a shock, no doubt. But
Yeah.
it was like, what do you mean you don't hear things and you don't have this extra
Yeah.
six information, extra sensory perception? So
Yes.
as you do this all the time, it's kind of like the expert trying to teach the novice, you know,
Yeah.
bulb works. The expert knows all about it, and the novice goes, "Tell me about it," and it's a problem explaining it. So I can
Yes.
understand that, and I think people can too. And how you say you've had several different voices, sounds, clairaudient, different intuition. I mean, all
Yeah.
wrapped up. Intuition is just getting an answer to a question, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
But with you, when they talk to you, when they give you this instruction, is it that I'm going to answer my own questions. It's not a big long statement. It's a direct answer, correct?
Oh, yes, they are just very direct. There is no beating around the bush. It is all very loving, of course, but there is no questioning the guidance. It is crystal, crystal clear. Yeah,
And again, when I was developing myself, I found there was that uncertainty and familiar, sort of as you've mentioned earlier in the
yeah,
interview, there wasn't the clarity now, but as then you were kind of like all over the place a little bit.
yeah.
As that progressed, and you begin to find yourself, you get a confidence about it. How do you say to people like, when they say, are these voices you're hearing? How do you know? Is that from the dark side or is that from the angels?
Oh,
What would you explain?
yes. Oh, that is a great question. Well, I suppose for me, and yes, I suppose if I tune into the various clients I have helped over the years, there is there can be a heavy feeling or something just feeling not quite right, or sometimes even a bad taste in the mouth or something when there are energies around us that are not of the purest and highest light. When we are channeling our intuition or beings that are benevolent, there is just such an automatic deep peace and knowing that we are channeling from the right place. Now, the second piece of this is back to what we were talking about with childhood, is that when you are clairaudient, people will often say, well, I don't hear that. You're hearing voices just like your Aunt Mildred. I'm just making this up, of course. You're going crazy. You're a liar. You're making this up. So we start to question the clairaudience or the cognizance of, well, aren't you a know-it-all? Or how do you know that? And then we feel like we have to have empirical evidence all of the time to justify and validate the knowing. And same with seeing. I'm not seeing it. So if I can't see it, therefore you are a liar or you are seeing and perhaps you're mentally unwell. And I can tell you now that I'm Mother Malia, I am very fortunate that for 20 years I was given many opportunities to practice the art of being misunderstood because holy cow, am I ever getting projected on, because I don't seem normal and my voice is different, my face does funny things, etc. I was very fortunate that one of my clients, who is an award-winning psychologist, happened to be at the retreat with me and knows very well the fine line between mental health issues and someone being a channel because she has researched that her whole life. And so she was able to assure people, don't worry, I'm very lucid. But that is in part because my nervous system is very regulated. And that is why I'm able to hold such a big energy. I also am very intentional about creating pristine conditions in my field to make sure that I'm always channeling from the purest place possible and keeping the vessel very pristine to hold, such an energy.
Now
Yeah.
that sounds like you're an extra special person having those abilities to be able to balance that. And I think that was a pretty good explanation because the
Yeah.
first thing when somebody says something profound,
Yes.
perhaps you were predicting the future, it's not in the minds of the people listening. And so you must be crazy. You're making this up, or
Yes.
worse, you're being deceitful. But to have,
Yes.
you're saying that you have some integrity and you look for the highest form. I know
Yes.
there's those, there's, I like to call it the apartment building. There's the people
Yes.
that live in the penthouse, that
Yes.
people live in the basement. And I'd much rather deal with the people in the penthouse. Okay,
Yes.
that thought. We'll be right back with more with this amazing a lady who is talking all about Mother Maya. The book is called Daily Messages from Mother Moya, the Great Mother. We'll be right back after this short break.